This is the story of the second oldest written account of Igbo history, published in the English language back in 1864 and brought back to the attention of the world by Maureen Warner Lewis about 140 years later in 2007. Aniaso was Archibald Monteath's Igbo name, and based on that name, especially the first bit, Ani, we speculate that he was from the Anambra Enugu Nnewi axis of Igbo land. He was born between 1789 and 1792 to his father, Duru, and his mom, Dirinea, the daughter of a royal. And he gives an account that he was his dad's favorite, being the only son in a family of four. He had three sisters. Based on his childhood recollections, we believe he is from Nri, the great pacifist spiritual kingdom in Igbo land, which was the first kingdom to have a major cultural influence among the Igbo people. He was being prepared to undergo the Ichi initiation, which at the time was reserved for young people from distinguished parents, when he was lured from his village by a man who was pretending to be interested in marrying one of his sisters. Unfortunately for Aniaso, that day was one of the rare days that his father actually left him at home with his sisters. He normally takes him everywhere, but unfortunately, as things would have it, that day he decided to leave him at home. The man lured him with the promise of treats, which again highlights how young he was, and according to his story, he walked for about a day or so, and it was only after he was forced onto a boat around Uguta, which we think is where he was taken, that he realized that he was being sold. In a sad moment that shows how young he was, when he realized what was happening to him, he asked the person who had lured him from his village to tell his father what had befallen him and to tell his father goodbye. He was only 9 or 10 years old. When he was finally taken aboard the big British slave ship, he was allowed to play on deck along with other young boys on the ship and sleep in quarters and not chained down like the older counterparts below deck, as they were deemed too young to be a threat. However, he recounts hearing them shout and cry for their families on the voyage across the Atlantic. On arrival to Jamaica, he was not allowed to go ashore, which might have been because he was the ship captain's settlement from the human consignment he was delivering, to be taken back to Britain, where the ship came from. But not wanting to be separated from his friends, he assured the ship captain that he would throw himself overboard the first chance he got, and was taken ashore and sold the same day. How do we know this story? The Moravian Church, which had its roots in modern-day Czech Republic, was persecuted by the Catholic Church, fled to Germany, and from Germany spread their church across the world, especially to the Atlantic. One of the countries they spread to was 18th century Jamaica. Due to Aniaso's work in helping them in their evangelism in the western part of that country, they made sure to immortalize his life when they thought he was approaching his end. This is how we get our second historical confirmation that the Igbo already worshipped and believed in one God long before the Europeans came, and the name we still use for God today, Chukwu. We also learned that cassava wasn't a staple food in Igbo land at that time. It was yam, maize, and cocoyam. This means cassava was probably brought into Igbo land about 50 to 100 years after he left. For more stories on African history, my book Ikojo can be found at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Walmart, and Waterstones, amongst others, depending on the country you reside in.